Hey, what's going on, guys? John Shea here from the No Shame Income Vlog, and today I'm actually going to be doing a review of the Autonomous L-Shaped SmartDesk. So this is a desk that I've actually been eyeing for quite some time, and it was something that I knew I really wanted to get. I wanted to get an upgraded desk, and I finally was able to purchase this. Thank you to some of the folks that actually went and checked out some of my other videos. I had a comparison video where I compared the Autonomous Ergochair 2, which I'm sitting in now, to my Dxracer gaming chair, which you can see here in the background. And I ended up getting over 40 people to go and pick up the Ergochair 2 through my referral link, and that allowed me to earn enough credits with the Autonomous store that I was actually able to get the L-Shaped SmartDesk 100% for free. So again, thank you for all of you who actually went and committed to doing that. I first wanted to kind of start this video out by walking through the product page here, and then we're going to kind of transition, and I'm going to actually jump into my office with my other camera, and I'll walk you through and kind of talk about the features of the desk, the build quality, how easy it was to assemble, all the different things that you guys are probably going to want to know before purchasing this desk. Now, in terms of the product page, the first thing that I noticed when I went to go pick up this desk was that you could actually get it as well in a black top and black frame, or you could do the white top with the white frame. I decided to stick with white because I'd actually had my prior desk in white. I really did debate, maybe do I want the black desk, but I figured, you know what, let's stick with white. It just feels like the more common color to stick with in terms of a desk. So that's what I decided to go with, and it looked like most of the people who bought this desk did the same thing. As you go through here, one of the biggest things you'll notice, and this was something that I came up with, is the desk itself can be assembled in one of two ways. So if you want what I would consider to be the return piece that comes off the side to actually be on the left side or the right side, depending on where you're going to place this desk in your room. So this was probably one of the biggest caveats that I ran into an issue when it came with assembling, because all the directions were specific to one side, and this was really one of the biggest downfalls for me. But that was the one thing I wanted to show you guys in this this product page. And the other thing that I definitely want to mention here before we jump over to my office video is to make sure that this thing is actually going to fit in your space. So this table is 77 inches long. It is huge. It's very long. In fact, I think it's a little bit longer than the desk that I had before, if not maybe the exact same size. It's kind of tough to tell, but it's very close, if not a little bit bigger, I would say. And then the return is another 29 inches across, and then you have basically the small top is 35 inches in width. So this is very big in terms of how much real estate this is going to take up in your office. So highly recommend just going through this before you guys decide to buy this desk. But yeah, let's jump over to my my other camera. I'm going to walk you guys through. I'm going to really break this down one of three ways. I'm going to talk about how it came shipped. I'm going to talk about the build quality, the installation, and then I'll kind of go through and actually I'll demo how the standing desk features work and everything that this kind of came with and my overall thoughts on the desk. All right, so this is actually the old desk setup. This was something I originally bought with the intention of being able to have two people sitting next to one another and using the computers basically, more or less as like a small little LAN. So you could have two people hanging out playing computer games. And, this desk has served me extremely well. In fact, it's probably been one of the best purchases I've ever made in terms of like just having something set up for my computer hardware, whole atmosphere, whatever you want to call it. Like just the entire thing was very nice. But one of the biggest problems with this was that it is extremely difficult if I wanted to say adjust this or move things around or even transporting this desk. It is very difficult. So I wanted to at least give you guys a little bit of a glimpse of kind of like what the before looked like. I actually started moving everything off the desk, like my keyboard and some other stuff, papers and things like that. But this was how I had it set up. So I'm gonna transition over, show you guys what the new setup will be like. I'm gonna clean up all these wires, kind of get this organized in a better way. I had the computer stacked down here, just sitting here. I've already moved it over there. And ultimately that's gonna end up probably over on the corner there. And I have a brand new, in this box. This is a brand new dual arm mounting system. So I have not assembled this yet, but I'm gonna transition over, show you guys the finished product once I've put this all together. All right, guys, so I'm actually going to walk through and kind of talk about this desk, and I really wanted to break this down, as I said, a few different ways. The first was the shipping. So this thing came in 3 separate boxes. Basically, I had one box that included both of the top pieces, another that had the entire frame section, and then I also had, I believe, another box that I think included some of the other parts. It may have been, I'm trying to remember exactly, but I believe this piece, the return part, was one box, this was in another box, and then all of the other frame and materials and stuff was in a third box. So what I ended up doing is I had a lot of other stuff in here when I went to build this, and that was probably the first mistake. Definitely make sure that you have a lot of room and that you don't have your office like cluttered with a ton of stuff when you get this desk, because that's going to be one of the biggest things. You do have to like flip it up and down a couple of times, because the assembly is a lot more difficult if you actually have it upright as opposed to laying the surface on the floor. Now, in terms of the shipping quality, everything came perfect. There were no dents or scratches, anything like that. It was really well packed. I also ended up finding that one of the biggest things that I didn't like about this setup was that the desk was actually given instructions only specific to having this return piece on the left side. So if my room was a scenario where, let's say I was putting it in this corner over here where I've got my printer, and I wanted the return to be like, you know, maybe over on this side coming out left, something like that, then it would have been perfect. Now I thought, okay, it's super simple. I just move this return piece to the other side. But what ended up happening was there's a piece down here at the back where you can see it's basically a straight pole, and then you've got 2 other poles here that have the feet on them. And what ended up happening is I put these in the wrong sides, not thinking, oh yeah, I have to switch that too, and it sort of became like a little bit of a cluster in my mind, just figuring out like, okay, how do I arrange all of this stuff? So that's the first thing I thought was a little bit of a flaw with this, is they don't really give you specific instructions on how, if you want to flip the return part of the desk, how do you do this without like screwing everything else up? So just be very wary that if you are going to have this on your right side, that the instructions that come with the desk, everything is on the opposite. The next biggest thing with this desk was the height. I noticed that as soon as I assembled this, it was actually a little bit higher than my old desk. Now, I don't know if that's actually a good thing or a bad thing, but I actually had to raise my Ergochair up pretty much to the max level, whereas before it was actually raised all the way down. I don't know necessarily that that was a great thing, because of the fact that you know, if you're like leaning in or you've got posture issues, whatever, it can potentially cause a problem. I have this little pillow here that I also use at my desk. This is like probably 10 bucks on Amazon. Basically, it kind of just keeps you like from doing things like crossing your legs or folding your feet or whatever. And I've found that this has been really helpful for me. But overall, it's just been taking a little bit getting used to for me to be able to, you know, stay at this height. I want to say it's probably about 1 inch to 2 inches higher than my old desk. So that's definitely something that you want to keep in mind, and it cannot go any lower than this. But I have found with the highest seat setting on my Ergochair 2, which many of you may pick up if you're getting this desk, that my hands are basically like pretty much level with where my elbows are. I'm actually coming down at just a slight angle. So it's not like I'm bending like this or doing anything where I'm like way too up. It pretty much comes out more or less perfect so long as you adjust your seat properly. In terms of some other things that were really cool about this desk, as you guys can see, I have a very minimal footprint for how many wires are under here. And the reason for that is they actually included their cable tray. Now, I didn't think it was gonna come with this, but this is a $19 accessory that they have on the website. And basically what this allows you to do, and another thing that I couldn't find like any videos for this, by the way, on YouTube. Nobody had like installed this thing apparently. This cable tray, you've got like a beam that's here. And with this beam, when you follow the instructions, they're gonna have you essentially tighten these 2 bolts that are here on each side. And this actually just tightens this piece here. This will actually extend. And depending on what you're using for your tabletop frame, that's gonna have to come out and extend. And then these are gonna tighten this so that this isn't like moving. And what you can do is actually utilize those existing bolts, and the cable tray is gonna go all the way in the back. I made the mistake of actually putting the cable tray here, and because the beam is here, I couldn't put any of my accessories or anything up here. Now, what I was able to do is I actually have a special power adapter from Belkin, and I have about 6 things plugged into this. This wire actually, the desk itself came with these little straps, which are really convenient because you can easily undo these. They're not like permanent by any means, but this one was a little too tight, so it ended up pulling itself out. You can see I had the sticky way back there. I probably want to put it a little bit closer, but they came with a bunch of these, so you can kind of, you know, get some wire management in here. But essentially I've really only got one thing plugged into the wall. That's one power adapter. And then I also have a power adapter brick for my ultra wide that sits up here. And other than that, I just stuffed most of the wires in here that are going into the PC. And because of the fact that I have the PC up on the desk, really you can't even see most of the wires unless you go behind the monitor. It is a little bit tight. You can see that they do have 2 integrated pieces here. This is basically like a little rubber that just conceals the wires and hugs them, but this can spin pretty freely. If you get too nuts with it, like this one started to get a little overcrowded, as you can see, with too many wires, but ultimately I ended up making it work. Previously, I had my computer on the floor, but I love this setup so much more because of the fact that, you know, if it's dark in here, I'll actually turn off the light. It really just highlights the effects of the case if you're doing anything with RGB lighting. I had recently added an extra couple of fans up in the top and one in the rear, and then this particular case came with 3 in the front. So if you're doing anything with lighting or RGB, you know, obviously this is a nice little plus to have this. So beyond that, another thing that I did is with this power strip, I have a piece here that I can control this at any time. So whenever I come into the room, I just switch this on, and then basically that turns on the entire setup. I have my router and my cable modem down below plugged into this on always on outlets. So if, like, for example, I wanted to power off the whole setup so we're not just drawing consistent power, I could actually have you know, all the Wi-Fi and everything still functional in the house. Now, in terms of you know, some other functionality with the desk, I don't want to get too carried away in some of the other things I did, but I did also get a mounting arm here. It's like a double wide, actually in one piece, where I can mount a monitor as high as, like, basically in terms of size wise, this is like a almost 30 pound monitor. I'll do another video in the future kind of reviewing this, but this ended up going perfectly with this desk, and that's why I wanted to mention it. So keep an eye out for my future videos on that. I'll do a review on this specifically in another video. But what was great in terms of like wire management is I was able to, this particular piece has a couple of USB ports in the front, and I was able to utilize that and basically tie both a 27-inch and a 34-inch monitor, and it just ended up working out perfectly, as you can see with this setup. I have the router over here. This is a wireless headset that has its own base station. This is just like some cards and like a supplement. And then if I really wanted to, I actually had my wife set up here with a standalone keyboard and a 17-inch laptop that was sitting right here. It was a little bit tough because I had to run like a power cord across here, and it was almost like a little bit of a hazard with the chair. But ultimately, if you did want to have someone else sitting here, she was literally using the chair right here and just sitting right up, putting her legs in between here. It worked out as like a secondary workstation. Now, one thing to really keep in mind is if you do have, you know, a situation where you really do need to have a bigger desk like this, but the return is going to be a problem, and you really want to have someone being able to, like, say, sit next to you at this station, I would highly recommend looking at the other SmartDesk on Autonomous's website, because they do have an option where you can get what's considered the XL top, which is basically this same top, this same size, but it does not have the return. I think had I looked a little bit closer, I may have potentially gone with that option, because commonly I will maybe have like a friend here on a weekend, and if we want to do some LAN gaming, he could use this monitor and sit next to me with another PC or a laptop, and we could both game next to each other. Now, again, like I said, I was able to have my wife do this, but because of the setup now with the monitor and being so far away, it's not really going to be quite as ideal as it would have been, and given the fact that my PC is now up on the desk, it definitely doesn't really make as much for a scenario for having 2 people sit here as it would have when I had my previous setup. So beyond that, I mean, wire management, as you can see, very easy. The desk itself, very high quality. It has like a really nice feel to it. Doesn't feel like it's gonna scuff very easy unless you really go like crazy trying to make a dent. The big thing is you do have an option with this particular setup. You can actually change where the control module is for raising the desk. So there's actually a couple of holes pre-drilled here where you could put it here, or I had the option, I believe, there's actually 2 holes, one here and here, where I could have had it on the left side. But I decided not to do it here because really this is like where I'm mainly using the desk. I didn't want my wrist hitting it or something like that. So I decided to have it over here, which worked out perfect. Let me walk you guys through and show you kind of the functionality of this. And I actually, believe it or not, have not played with this too much, but you do have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then a manual mode. And I believe these are just presets. I've not played with them because honestly, I don't really see much reason, but let's just say you had like a certain height that you wanted it to, you know, raise to, you could actually just hit the button and it would automatically go to that height for you without you needing to like sit here and hold the button. So that's probably your biggest advantage. In terms of the functionality, what's cool about this is it actually reads out a number of the height. So the lowest is a 29.5, and I believe the highest, it goes pretty high. And a couple things that I did have to really look into when I was looking at this is, you know, as you can see, I'm getting pretty close to like my max capacity on, you know, how much this wire is actually gonna let me raise this. Most of the other wires, like there's a Cat 6, this is the coax, which I still need to actually run behind the desk over there. And then there's a speaker wire there running to, from the sub up to the outlet. And then otherwise, these are just 2 speaker wires for the left and right speakers. And that cable running down there, I believe, is for the monitor or one of the speakers. So there's very minimal footprint in what's going on with like wiring. I still need to like spend a little bit of time organizing this, but as you can see, I was able to get this up to like 48.4. And at this point, if I stand up, I mean, this is actually a little bit higher than, like for me, I'm 5'10", and this is probably even a little bit too high for me. The other cool thing I thought about this whole standing desk thing is I do have a webcam here. So if I wanted to like do recordings and have it go against the wall behind me and do this like while standing, as opposed to using like this camera like I usually do, I have that option, whereas before I wouldn't have been able to do that, or I would have had to like rearrange the whole webcam. So for some of you, that might be a cool functionality, but ultimately, you know, I was a little nervous about like the wiring situation here when raising this, but it works pretty well. Haven't had any hiccups, very easy to use, takes like a second, and then as soon as it kicks on, the thing raises. Another thing to keep in mind is just making sure, like I had an issue when I had the desk too close to the wall. I actually scraped the wall back there with one of the mounting arms. So once it's in place, pretty much good, and you can use it anytime you want. But yeah, overall, I would say I do recommend the desk. I think for what it is, it's a really good price. Make sure if you're moving it with somebody, you do, you know, have 2 people at once, and when assembling it, that you do have enough room to be able to actually put it together. And the biggest thing is also making sure that you do have like all the proper tools. Most of the bolts are actually done just by simply like using like these hex screws that they do provide to you, and you'll be able to adjust pretty much all of these with all the included tools. There's nothing else that you'll need to provide. And then beyond that, it's just making sure that this beam is actually on the side orientated for where you want to have it. And if they do include the cable tray like they did for me, you can definitely take advantage of that. And if you have a setup like mine with Belkin, you can save a little bit of energy there on your power bill. Other than that, I'm very happy with the desk. I think it came out perfect with this setup. And if you guys have any questions or comments, definitely let me know. If you do decide to buy this desk, I definitely appreciate it. I'm gonna leave a link below in my description on this video. And if you pick up the desk, I believe they actually even give you a small discount on the desk. I think you can get like a certain dollar amount off on your first purchase. And I'll also leave a link for my Ergochair too, which has been my favorite office chair. This thing has been awesome. Be sure to check out my other video where I compare that here to my Dxracer chair, and you guys can kind of make a decision on this. But yeah, I love the Autonomous products, huge fan of them. Again, be sure to throw me a thumbs up on the video if you guys enjoyed this, and if you have any questions, shoot me a question, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel.